Hey, what's up you guys? In this video we're gonna work on this hidden radiator in 3ds Max and Substance Painter, so please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you're new. Alright, we're gonna start working on this hidden radiator in 3ds Max, and the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create a plane, as you can see here from the side view, and we're gonna make sure that we are gonna respect a real world scale, and it's gonna be about something like 90 centimeters height, and the width is gonna be about 1 meter or something like that. So we're approximately trying to get something close to what can be considered accurate. Later we can fix it, of course. So for now we are trying to split this thing in half and try to smooth it out a little bit using the chamfer modifier, because it is very good for doing these things. We can just create a line like that and chamfer it in order to get other lines or edges that are gonna be spreading across the surface in order to make it smoother and much nicer. And now we're going to apply the ring and connect in order to split this thing here in half. And what we're going to do next is we're going to select all these elements. We can connect them like this. Also, we want this line to be up there. We can move it manually. We can move it using any technique. For now, we're going to create inset and create certain types of selection inside these polygons, as you can see, because we're gonna use them for doing certain things that we're gonna explain now. Also, you can align these vertices using the alignment tool in the polygon in the editable poly. For now, as we inset here, you can see that these polygons here are straight, the layer lines are straight, and everything else. We want also to select these areas and create a line in the center for each one of these, because we want to do the same thing we've done for the plane we created in the first attempt when we started working on this one. And we will actually create some holes here, but we want to make the endings or the sides of these polygons here a little bit chamfered and smooth, as you will see right now. So we're gonna try to do it by actually trying, and we'll see what is the method that is gonna work best for us. So as you can see here, we're gonna try to do this the simple way using the scale tool, and now we will try now to chamfer, and as you can see, chamfering is gonna give us lots of vertices and lots of clutter and unnecessary edges and polygons. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select everything, as you can see, which is gonna give us a much nicer and smoother result. And we're gonna deal with the extra edges differently. So we're gonna have a few of these edges that we don't really need, so we're gonna use the target weld tool in order to target weld all the vertices in the right place, because if we keep them like this, if we don't actually get rid of those, we're gonna see that we're gonna see some unnecessary hard edges on top of the this big surface we're gonna work on, because actually extra edges is not gonna always gonna be better for making us creating something nicer and smoother. So for now, I decided that we're going to actually use some of these edges because I wanted to make it even smoother. This is something it's better to actually add edges incrementally rather than kind of throw in a bunch of unnecessary elements or edges in there and without really needing them. So it's better to add stuff when you need them. Okay, for now we're going to search for modifier, which is gonna be for in this case, which is gonna be probably we're gonna use symmetry here in order to duplicate this part and create the other half. So we're gonna change the axis to the y-axis, and as you can see, we are having some nice symmetry here. But for now, what we will do is we'll go to the front viewport or the left, depending on where you're looking at it, and we're gonna bring these vertices closer using the scale tool. As you can see, make them a little bit closer from the side and from the top, and as a result, the effect we created on one side is gonna appear on the other side. For now, we're going to apply the shell modifier from the list of modifiers because we need some thickness. We're gonna go with about approximately 3 centimeters, which is gonna be great. Also, we're gonna convert it to edible poly because we want to override the shell modifier, and we want to select these polygons here in order to perform a nice trick here, because we want to create kind of empty space here. We don't want it closed like this. We want an empty space. We want these polygons here to represent some holes, some vertical holes. So we're gonna use the bridge modifier, the bridge tool in 3ds Max edible poly in order to kind of create that nice effect. Okay, for now we are adding an edge in the very center, that horizontally, of course, because we want to create some nice edge in the center or in the middle, because it is what we can see on the reference image, and I think it is a nice addition and is gonna actually help this large piece stand out and give it even more details. Alright, so now keep holding Control and select Polygon to convert edge selection to poly selection, and we're gonna use a local normal in order to spread the extrusion evenly. Alright, so when you do this, actually you can try to make sure that the size or the length of the extrusion is enough or accurate, and then confirm that. Alright, so for now we're going to do something similar, which is just trying to make the length a little bit better than it was before. Now we're gonna try to create kind of a circle here using the selection of polygons we're gonna choose. So we're gonna create a line, as you can see here, in between, in order to give us a little bit of options here, in order to make sure that this process is gonna be much nicer. So the other half we're not gonna worry about it, because we're gonna focus on this side first, and later we're gonna jump to the other one and create it using the symmetry modifier. So we're going to actually try to straighten these lines because we want something accurate, and what we'll do here, we're going to select the vertices in the corner, and we're going to connect all these vertices together. By the way, we're going to try to create a circle, so we are going to bring these closer, and here, as you can see, we're trying to go a little bit manual, but the results are gonna be pretty accurate, so don't worry about anything of that sort. So for now, we're going to select these edges and chamfer them, as you can see, and now we can actually grasp that that sense of circularity, or if this is even a word. So we are seeing something that looks nice and smooth, and we're going to target weld these vertices, these extra vertices that are actually not even necessary. So in the center also, we're gonna right click and collapse that polygon right there, which is gonna bring everything with it. For now we have this nice circle here, and we're going to hold shift in order to extrude this edge that you can see here. Keep doing that until we get something close to what we want. Also, we want to add some little details that we're going to take care of just now. So we're going to select these, one of these, ring connect, and chamfer. So in order to do this, we're going to chamfer these edges, select these, ring, keep holding control to convert edge selection to poly selection, and extrude negatively, as you can see here, using local normal. That was real quick. I hope you actually got it, because I sometimes work so fast. It's something that comes with repetition and experience and things. Sometimes I find myself thinking about stuff and doing the work in the same time, because sometimes you do things so many times it becomes a second nature. Anyways, here we are trying to create this cylinder here on top of the surface we just created. In order to do this successfully, you need to activate the auto grid, which is the option that allows you to create objects on top of surfaces. So this is going to be copied. As you can see, this is a copy of the cylinder we just created. It has actually 6 sides. This was done on purpose because these are going to be bolts, and this is their nature. So we're going. Now I see that there is some details that we didn't actually finish, which is some of the interior side or the interior part of these gaps, and we're going to use the chamfer modifier in order to make sure that we have nice and smooth surfaces inside, because we don't want it to be too sharp. We want it to be smooth and everything else. Alright, so we're gonna go probably with 3 edges or 4, depending on what we actually want, and confirm that. Alright, so this looks way better than it was before. Alright, so now we're gonna continue what we were working on. We're gonna grow the selection, because we wanted to make it a little bit bigger, because from a distance it looks like it is too small compared to what we have in the reference image. Okay, we're gonna now create another cylinder, which is gonna be on top. This one is gonna be a pipe, so it's gonna have way more sides compared to that bolt, which only has 6 sides. I'm going to rotate this about 90 degrees, or 90 degrees exactly to be accurate, and we're gonna copy it a second time, probably, because there is going to be a T-shaped pipe here that we need to create. Okay, we're gonna copy this cylinder here, keep holding shift and rotating in order to do this successfully. Also, we're gonna get rid of these unnecessary edges, because they are not necessary, and we're going now to move these apart using the scale tool, these vertices, and we're gonna try to weld these vertices together, which is something interesting. I didn't do a lot of it throughout the tutorials I created, but I believe it is gonna be something that you're gonna find interesting. So we're going to do this slowly and nicely, and I hope you understand the process, because there are sometimes there are certain things that need a little bit attention. You need to pay a little bit attention to grasp and to understand them and to apply them in your own work. So we're gonna select a few of these vertices and we're gonna push them close to what we can see here from the side view, because we're trying to align these vertices to the according to the shape of the cylinder we're gonna weld it to. So yeah, don't actually be intimidated by the randomness here, because this is all something we can fix just now in just a minute, as you will see. Alright, so we're gonna bring these vertices closer like this. We don't have to be super accurate or something like that. You can use the snap tool if you want to, but if you don't, it is gonna be okay, because this is not gonna be super necessary. Also, we're gonna cut this area here, or we're going to select these edges here, connect them, and weld the two vertices. Okay, great. Also, we're going to try to actually create a bridge. Before this, we're gonna make sure that these two vertices there are gonna be pushed apart in the right place. Also, we're gonna push them back a little bit as well. And if you don't want to do it, just keep it as it is. For now, we're gonna select these two borders and create a bridge, as you can see. And this bridge is gonna allow us to create the T-pipe, or the T-shaped pipe that we wanted to create in the first place. Alright, the position of these vertices don't really matter, so yeah, we're gonna rotate this pipe a little bit and bring it to where it's supposed to be, and reduce its size because doesn't look right. For now, we're going to try to align some of these surfaces and put them in the right places. Okay, it seems like we made a little bit of progress here. Alright, we're gonna try to create some interesting shapes here, and it's going to be better and better as we go, and as we create more polygons. Alright, so for now we're going to create yet another cylinder, which is going to represent the valve that we're going to use in order to open and close this hidden radiator. And I think this piece here is going to be interesting, so we're going to have some interesting things to learn in modeling. We're gonna try to go with 24 edges, and we're going to also try to make it look close to what we want it to be. Alright, we're gonna try to extrude these edges. By the way, if you don't know, I'm holding shift all the time in order to perform these edge extrusion here. Okay, so we're going to do this, continue doing this until we find ourselves in the position where we're gonna close this and make sure that anything else we need is gonna be unnecessary, because we're already done the work. Alright, for this one we're gonna add an edge in the center in order to create a nice curve right there using the chamfer tool. We're gonna add few edges, like 3 or 4. So now we're trying to select every we're gonna select kind of 3 vertices and skip 2. It's not in that sense, so we're gonna select a row 3 vertices and we're gonna skip 2 rows, and in order to extrude them like this, push them apart to start creating the shape of this valve we are dealing with here. So alright, using the smooth modifier, we can see that I just want to test if this is gonna look right when we apply the smoothing modifier, and it does seem like we are in the right way, but of course there is some work we need to do, especially in the phase of creating support edges, because I think it is the determining factor of how this is gonna look like. Okay, so we're gonna select these vertices as well, as you can see, and we're gonna make sure that we're gonna create certain shape that we are targeting here. Just bear with me, because it's not we're gonna have a little bit a certain degree of ability to control vertices and polygons to get this thing looking right. So I'm just testing right now with the turbo smooth, because later it's gonna be hard to go back and fix it if we don't do it now. So it seems like we got the essence of it. For now we're gonna work on this piece here, which is a plastic piece. I don't know what it does exactly, but it is it's a nice addition to what we created before. Also, we need a second bolt over here. we're gonna try to work on this piece here, and we're gonna chamfer these edges because there are gonna be some bumps and some small pieces bumping out of the surface. In order to do this, we're gonna select them all and extrude them in the same time using local normal type of extrusion. So when we are done working on the this piece here, we're gonna copy it using the symmetry modifier because it is very helpful. It's a great help when dealing with these types of stuff. So for the next piece, this bolt here, we're gonna try to inset these polygons a little bit, and we're gonna create a bridge, of course, because we want this space to be empty. Also, after we create this bridge, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna go to the side view or the front view, depending on from which angle you're looking at it. We're gonna connect and using two edges, and we're gonna push these vertices, the interior vertices, apart in order to make it look way smoother. Okay, I think right now we will try to select this edge in the center, and we're gonna try to delete one half, of course the half that we didn't work on, because we have one half that we completed, and it is going to be smart if we use it in order to make sure that the other one is going to be also completed using the symmetry modifier, of course. Alright, when we're done, we convert to a poly in order to override these modifiers. And also it seems like we have to apply symmetry vertically, because there are some things we need here. Okay, now as you can see here, we just copied these pieces we worked on, because this is how the this hidden radiator should look like. Copy these pieces also as instances, because we need the same we need actually the same to see the same results in here if anytime we want to make other changes that we didn't work on. We just want to flip this one here because it is facing the wrong direction, because we want both of these pipes and valves facing the same direction, because they're going to be against the wall or something like that. So it's going to be smart to do this. Also, we're going to copy this piece, push it to down here. We are creating right now another cylinder that is going to be on top of the other one. You can do this by activating the auto grid option on the top of the editable poly. Right now we're going to use the edge extrusion method, keep holding shift all the time, in order to make sure that the edges are going to be extruded properly. All right, right now we're gonna start working on the process of adding support edges. So this is gonna be it's gonna take a little bit of time. It's not gonna be that much, but it's gonna be highly repetitive. We've done it so many times in the past, and it seems like it's an easy process to do, and this one in particular seems like it is even easy to grasp and to perform. These parts here are interesting because we've got some triangles which will prevent us from getting a nice and easy selection, especially with the ring tool. So we're gonna have to select manually sometimes, and we're gonna delete the edges that we don't really need. Right now we're creating layers for the high poly and the low poly of this model. So this is important because I should have done that before we start adding support edges. It is kind of a two. We are making a decision between walking the high poly path and the low poly path. So here the high poly and the low poly are gonna go separate ways. So this is kind of a point where we have to choose. We're gonna work on the high poly first, finish it, and then we're gonna go to the other layer and work on the low poly. This is very important. You should do that every time you're trying to create a low poly model for games. here when it comes to creating or supporting this area here, we're gonna do a double support using the inset tool, because we want to capture the details here, and we want to solidify this area in order to get the effect that we're looking for. So now after we are done with the process of adding the support edges, we're gonna bring back the low poly version, and we're gonna start now deleting everything that we don't really need. So for now we're gonna get rid of the surfaces that are not necessary. So we're gonna do this by removing all the edges that we think are gonna be replaced using the high poly when we start baking in Substance Painter. Also here we are trying to increase the polygon count a little bit, because if we keep it as at 16 edges or something, it's not gonna look good in the baking, because we're gonna have some black corners and everything else, and this is not gonna be good. So this way we're gonna have a much better results, in my opinion. Now we're gonna start using target weld in order to get rid of the extra vertices that are not necessary, as you can see here, because we are operating right now on a flat surface, which is technically we are allowed to remove as much as possible, as long as we don't disrupt the overall silhouette or the kind of the overall geometry of our mesh. Feel free to remove anything as long as you don't actually go over or under the high poly. So they have to be identical in terms of the space they're occupying, no more, no less. But there are some details you can capture from the high poly, and this is what we are doing here. So the target weld tool and the collapse tool are two tools, or there are a few things we're going to use in order to get rid of the extra vertices and edges and get some nice and low poly model that we will create. Also here we're gonna get rid of the some of the edges. As you can see here, we're gonna select every second one, because I think this is not really necessary to have all these here. So loop and control backspace to remove these. For these pieces here, there aren't a lot of things we can do. Because we have cylindrical shapes. So spherical and cylindrical shapes are hard to actually reduce the poly count from, because when we have curves, it's we're gonna have problems in baking. But if we have flat surfaces like the piece we worked on before, it's gonna be really easy to navigate and get rid of as many as possible, as long as we don't violate the basic rules of creating a low poly mesh. For this one, we can remove a lot, so we're gonna start from a certain point. So this one here, control backspace. And also these these edges or these polygons that are extruded, we can get rid of because they are going to be generated using the normal maps in Substance Painter. Now we can bridge these two together like this. Also, it seems like the poly count on this one is too high for this piece because it's just too much. I think there are 48 sides or something like that. It's way more than necessary. I think games in the future will be able to, or game consoles will be able to handle way more polygon count in games. So for now, we've seen a lot of progress compared to what we had even 10 years ago, and I think computers are getting stronger and stronger every year and every decade. It's like unrecognizable where we were. Kind of tremendous difference in strength and ability. Now phones operate like they are computers. It's insane. They say that your phone is more powerful than the computers that were used in order to launch Apollo 13, I believe, to the moon or something like that. Compared to what we had in the 60s, 70s, computing power has grown tremendously. It's insane. And I think with AI, and especially when we reach singularity, which is what happens when AI goes super intelligent, we are gonna see some insane growth in development. Probably this will lead to our end as a species, because at that point we cannot control AI, which actually at that point will be called the super AI or super intelligence. It's actually, we will be hopefully they will not see us as ants or something like that, or some animals, and destroy us, because their intelligence will be super high. So it's hopefully it will turn out to be good, or hopefully I will not be around to see that. It's scary, and it sparks some hope for a better future for humanity in the same time. So here it's a little bit tricky because we have to be a little bit careful. We don't want to remove too much. In the same time, we want to be a little bit conservative and save ourselves some polygons that we can't afford. Alright, we're gonna collapse this, as you can see. For now, we're gonna try to start working on the UV unwrapping, and it's gonna be interesting because there are a few pieces, but this one in particular we have a little bit of work to do. we can approach this process differently each time we use another technique. So we'll try to, for example, here we can continue this way and try to attach these polygons and these edges and stuff. But also we can cut the seams ourselves, which is gonna give us more control over what we are doing, rather than being under the mercy of random computer computations. So here we are trying to select where the seams are gonna be, and we're gonna have way more control over it overall. Okay, we're gonna now try to organize these pieces that look similar, and we're gonna push them apart. So this is the first step of trying to organize this jungle of UV islands. Shift S from the keyboard or right click stitch selected in order to stitch these pieces together. Actually, I created a video explaining all the shortcuts and the tools I use in order to be able to follow me correctly. Probably from now on I will be linking or putting the video in the comment section or in the description or something like that, because I think it is necessary for you to be able to know what I'm doing under the table. Sometimes you can't understand if you're a beginner, and to be honest, my tutorials I think an extremely newbie or new person to 3ds Max is not going to be able to follow me completely, but nonetheless it's going to be a nice experience seeing what I'm doing to create these game props and stuff. So the process of organizing these different pieces is gonna be a little bit time consuming, I would say, but it is gonna be okay. You can actually stitch select these those different pieces in between these gaps. If you want to keep them detached, as I will do, is gonna be okay as well. Okay, right now, as you can see, we'll try to organize these pieces once again, because we had to rescale the elements in order to make sure that their size is similar. Man, it's gonna be a jungle of UV islands when we put all these pieces together, but bear with me because this is just the start. Alright, so now I used a checker texture that you can just you kind of drag and drop from your computer on an empty slot and apply it to the model you have here, and you can see that we've done a good job and everything looks nice and fine and everything else. And now we're going to apply it to all the pieces to avoid the process of applying it to all pieces individually, which is not really a good thing because it's annoying and distracting from the real work. So alright, when it comes to the next pieces, most of them are cylindrical. Actually, all of them are, to be honest. And we're going to apply the same technique, same trick, which is very simple. So I'm gonna actually kind of tell you what you're going to do ahead of time. So first of all, you're going to select the piece, apply the Unwrap UVW modifier, open the UV editor, go to mapping, box mapping, and you're gonna have separate pieces. Right click, stitch selected, or Shift S from the keyboard, and organize your pieces, put them in a corner, and do this over and over again. This is basically what we're gonna do in the next few minutes. For this piece here is gonna be a little bit different because we're gonna cut it in half. We could have used different methods, but I think this one will work just fine. So we're gonna try to flatten these out and put them aside. As you can see here, I'm changing the size of these aisles according to, or comparing it to the rest of the pieces, so we can have an easy time when we put everything together. it seems like we are almost done with the process of UV unwrapping, and as I said before, these elements here are all similar, and when we're done, we are kind of attach everything together in order to jump to the next process, which is packing the UVs. This part is very important, and there are a lot of UV kind of overlap in here, let's just say. And boy, there are so many pieces. So we're gonna rearrange and reorganize these pieces, and like this, as you can see, there are so many pieces here. Probably it's a good idea to keep them overlapped, but in the texturing phase, we're going to have textures that look similar on all the pieces, which is not really gonna give us that realistic look, or actually natural look we're going for. Anyways, there's gonna be a lot of work to do here. You can easily spend 20 minutes just organizing these pieces to your kind of full capacity, because you can easily throw them without trying to get something good in a couple of minutes. But in order to get something nice and presentable, especially if other people are gonna work with it or see it at least, it's gonna represent you very well. So as you can see here, we will try to actually delete some of the polygons we don't really need, and they are kind of laying there without doing anything. So I'm gonna select everything and deselect to get the ones that I'm going after. So these are gonna be deleted because, as I said, they're unnecessary, and of course probably we have about 32 polygons in each section, multiplied by kind of 32 by 4 by 12, which is a lot of polygons. So we can easily remove these and reduce the poly count quite a bit. So when we go back to the UV unwrapping, we're gonna find it easier to actually organize, and also is going to be better for the results, and to get something efficient and something that we can call a nice low poly model without using extra edges that are going to be not necessary. And of course, we don't want to do anything that is going to be kind of making our model look bad and function bad in the game engine. Here we are trying to use the automatic stuffing tool that comes with 3ds Max's UV unwrapping and UV unwrap editor in order to have an easy time organizing and stuff. So it seems like we are wasting some time here, but probably at some point I'm gonna stop the video, because This process is gonna take a little bit of time, and it's gonna be a little bit time consuming. So we're gonna make sure that we are I'm showing you the basic concepts and theory behind it, and you can do a little bit of the heavy weighting yourself when you are working on your project. All right, after we organize all the UV islands and make sure that everything is UV packed correctly, now we're gonna jump to the process of naming our pieces, and this is incredibly important for the what we call baking that we will do in Substance Painter. So Substance Painter should be able to recognize separate pieces, and the way to tell it what to do is by using names, and we're going to use a main name and underscore and then a suffix. So for the low poly, you're going to use a suffix underscore FP. For the high poly, is going to be underscore HP. This is the way I do it. Feel free to choose any name you want. Just make sure when you go to Substance Painter, you're going to use the same names or the same naming convention that you used here in 3ds Max. And also, by the way, the names you use don't matter as much as using the names correctly. So the names you give these pieces indicates and tell probably human being what these things are, but Substance Painter doesn't care what the name is. It just compares the values of these names and kind of it will try to match these pieces, the high poly and the low poly, based on the name. As I said, it does not matter what the name is. But organization is great if for yourself, if you want to come back later to it and adjust some pieces, especially when you are trying to find a particular piece, especially in a complicated model, or if someone is going to work with your model, whether it be a coworker or probably you're going to sell this model or something like that. In this regard, it's very important. Otherwise, for baking in Substance Painter, it doesn't really matter. we're gonna separate these pieces here in two parts. We're gonna call them probably section A and section B because they are similar. They should have the same name, but since they are kind of very close to each other, it's not gonna be good for baking. So we have to separate them. Alright, so after we finish naming our model, we're gonna go to Substance Painter, bring the low poly model, and confirm everything, and you're gonna bring it over here. So sorry for the weird cut. And once we bring our low poly model, we're gonna test how the baking is gonna go. So we're gonna open the baking dialog here. We're gonna bring our high poly model. As you can see here, just bring where you saved your high poly model. We're gonna change some settings, especially the suffixes for the high poly and the low poly. And of course, we're going to test quickly how the bake is gonna look like. If it's gonna look right, we're gonna go with it. If not, we're gonna try different things, and it seems like it is working properly for now. So we're gonna bring the baking dialog or baking window again. We're gonna use anti-aliasing and super sampling. Change the parameters, especially in the ID and the ambient occlusion. Especially the ID, it's very important. So we're gonna change, probably gonna push this one to 100. The secondary rays in the ambient occlusion. Change this to self occlusion to same mesh name. That's why naming is very important, as I said before, because everything depends on it in Substance Painter. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to actually use the tools of Substance Painter. Alright, so when we confirm that everything is being done properly, we're going to start the baking process. This can take a couple of minutes to, let's say, half an hour or 1 hour, depending on how complex your model is. So after the baking is done, you're gonna see that we have some nice results here, and we can start adding some textures. So we're gonna use smart materials, and we're gonna use materials. We are gonna use everything we need. So for this one, I don't think that the texturing is gonna be complicated. It's very straightforward, and for the most part, we're gonna use some smart materials. So we're gonna use this I'm gonna use this one here, just drop it right there. And of course I used this folder, and we're gonna change the color of this smart material because this color green is not really something we want to see. We're gonna go with white. As you can see here, this white color. Alright, and the texture or the smart material we are using is interesting, so we're gonna go to the edges. We're gonna go to the mask and the the generator that is being used to create inside this mask to create this effect. We can see here we're gonna reduce some of the parameters because I actually don't like the fact that this repetition is going on in these pieces, even though every piece is unwrapped uniquely. So anyways, we're not gonna pay a lot of attention to it because we're gonna reduce the wear level to a degree to which it's not gonna be that noticeable. I also noticed that some generators don't have the ability to change the size of the UVs and so on, which is very important for changing and randomizing these sorts of things. For now, I think it's okay for this first folder, which has everything here except that we're gonna add a mask to it. So alright, so this folder we're gonna rename it Steel 2, and this folder here is gonna be very important for working on the second type of material. But here on the first folder, add a mask, go to polygon fill, and we're gonna select only the pieces that the first steel material is gonna be affecting, or the pieces that are gonna be affected by this first smart material, which are these pieces, of course. Its color is white. Probably you cannot see clearly what's going on, but hopefully you're gonna be able to notice what you are doing. Or you can change the color and later bring it back to what it was. Okay, for the second steel material, we are going to add a black mask and select only the pipes and the bolts, probably. I like using folders because folders give you the ability to control how the or what are the pieces that you're gonna affect by the textures or by the materials. But the good thing using a folder and a mask is that it doesn't matter what is the material inside, you can change it anytime, which is very good for gaining time and organizing your textures and stuff. Also here we're gonna change the intensity of the first texture, which is the rust texture, and we don't want to see a lot of rust because we want it to be relatively clean, this model here. So I'm gonna add this piece here. I didn't show you how to create, I just brought from another from list of small pieces that I don't like to recreate every time I work on something. This is called being smart, by the way. You don't want to rework or redo everything from scratch every time because yeah, it's kind of not smart to work on everything from scratch unless you are very new to the to the process and you need to learn the basics. For now, we're gonna add another folder, and this time we're gonna add some plastic for the valve and the piece behind it. And of course, we're gonna use a mask. So right click, add a black mask, and we're going to use polygon fill. Select that valve and that plastic piece behind. Also, we're gonna do the same thing for the other side, which is this one. We're gonna change the colors a little bit. We're gonna go with something white. Even though it does not look very different, but anyways, I think this is it for this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please like it, and if you don't know, I have a Patreon in which I share my kind of some of the things I work with, like textures, alphas, substance painter files, the low poly model, the high poly model, and everything else you need in order to create something like this and see how I created it. So yeah, without further ado, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.